Hello, and welcome to another podcast event from New Energy Advancement Hub. Today, we are looking eastwards towards India. In fact, coincidentally, it so happens that today is also the election counting day going on as we speak. Um, so, today's topic is actually really interesting. We're going to talk about rooftop solar in India, and we have Shantanu Roy, who's a policy specialist at Center for Study of Science, Technology, and Policy, also known as CSTEP. So welcome, Shantanu.
Thank you.
Um,
Thanks for having me here.
so Shantanu, why don't you introduce yourself and what's your role at CSTEP and what is CSTEP doing?
Yeah, sure. So, I have over 15 years of work ex. I started with the oil and gas sector, moved into thermal energy. I'm a mechanical engineer by background, and after working in the industry for around 8.5 years, I decided to go for an MBA from the Indian Institute of Management Indore. Post MBA, then I entered the renewable energy domain, where I've been working since the last 7-8 years now. I've been with CSTEP for the last couple of years. I'd like to tell something about CSTEP before I tell what exactly I do at CSTEP. Yeah, so CSTEP is a not-for-profit organization. We are a research-based think tank. Essentially, we work with central as well as state governments at various levels and other institutions to develop solutions using science and technology. And we work towards being the foremost institution of policy analysis in India. And our mission, as you can see, is to enrich policy making with innovative approaches using science and technology to ensure a sustainable and a secure, inclusive society for the years to come. So CSTEP mainly focuses on four major areas. First is to ensure a secure and sustainable future for India, the country's clean energy transition, having clean air for all, and India's digital transformation. I work in the India's clean energy transition team at CSTEP, which focuses on transmission and grid planning, renewable energy, and energy efficiency. The team in which I work right now, regulatory policy, clean fuels, and electric mobility. So what me and my team do at CSTEP is that we work with various state governments and central governments and other departments to promote the uptake of renewable energy across the nation. So that is a broad idea of what exactly we do with CSTEP. We do multiple things at CSTEP, like we do for rooftop solar, we are doing potential assessment exercises for multiple cities in India. Then we are working with state governments to create awareness about rooftop solar, to develop various business models about rooftop solar, which can be a win-win situation for all the stakeholders involved, like for the distribution companies, the consumers, and all of the stakeholders in the domain. So I think that is a brief overview of what I do at CSTEP and what CSTEP is.
Okay, so that's interesting because you worked on various other domains, and your background is in engineering. So can you talk about like what exactly motivated you towards getting into the regulatory policy in this solar space?
Yeah, so when I was doing my MBA, this was around the year 2016-17, uh, the solar market was gradually picking up in India. That time it was in its nascent stages, but yeah, it was gradually picking up. And renewable energy, I have been always fascinated by renewable energy. Uh, Even when I was doing my engineering way back in the year 2006-7, me and my group we developed in fact a small hydro turbine. So yeah, so my interest in renewable energies goes, I mean, so long. I mean, so back in terms of years. So yeah, so renewable energy always interested me. And when post my MBA, when I got this opportunity to enter this sector, I was really interested and really motivated. And then when I started working in solar, I worked in different domains. I started with project management. I also worked for supply chain management. Then coming into my current role here, I work as a policy specialist. So here, as I said, we work with various departments to and government departments and in the central as well as the state governments to help them scale up rooftop solar and also other renewable energy domains, not just rooftop solar, but yeah, solar rooftop is one of the core areas that we are working in.
Okay, so I mean, This is a timely topic because India is going through a massive transition. It has its promise for net zero. It's trying to play an integral role in the COPs. So it's going to be an uphill task, both from project management point of view and also from an investment and finance point of view. So, can you talk a little bit more about uh, briefly the challenges, how you'll describe this domain right now in general, the solar space and the energy transition space in India?
Yeah, so this slide shows the current scenario of solar in India. So as you see, the installed capacity is more than 80 gigawatt as of now. I mean, this is as on 30th April. So a few gigawatts have already been added post that month. Uh, and if you see in the last one financial year, around 15 gigawatt capacity has been added. So you see a huge percentage has been added in the last year itself. And then India, as you said about the India's ambitious targets, there's a 500 gigawatt renewable energy target for India by 2030, of which solar is 300 gigawatt. So it's a huge target. We are now at 82 gigawatt and we are in the mid of 2024. So we have around 5 years to go from 80 gigawatt to 300 plus gigawatt. But it is happening. It is gradually happening. There are certain challenges, but there's a lot of push from the government. There is a lot of motivation and push from the industry as well. And if you see this 82 gigawatt number, it is primarily covered by the utility scale solar, which is around 65 gigawatt as of now. And rooftop solar is the smaller part. We'll come to rooftop solar later, but rooftop solar is the smaller part. It's around 12 gigawatt. Now, also, if you see the power sources mix of India, you see it is still led by coal, which is around say 50, it's 49%, so almost half. And but you see the solar is now at a good percentage, it's around 19%. And around 5 years back, this number was very low. Coal was leading all the way, but solar has been gradually increasing over the years. So there is a lot of improvement in the last 5 years, or if you say last 10 years also, a lot of improvement. There are certain challenges uh, in terms of regulatory and policy in rooftop space. If you talk, there are multiple challenges. There are challenges like consumer awareness. There are also hurdles related, bureaucratic hurdles, because rooftop solar as such, I mean, especially the net metering scheme does not work always for the discoms, or discoms think that way, that this scheme does not work. So especially they fear losing out the big, larger customers, the especially the commercial and industrial segment customers. So yeah, there are challenges, but India has been doing well overall. And if you the next big target for India is to achieve net zero by 2070. So estimates say that more than 5,500 gigawatt of solar would be required if India wants to achieve that target by 2070. So yeah, there is a still India. I mean, at 80 gigawatt, I think it's just the start of the journey, start of a much bigger, much longer journey. But I think India is on the right track. In the previous 3 4 years, we have been doing well. India also stands, I think, rank fourth globally in terms of solar installation, and also I think in terms of overall renewable energy installation across the world. So India has been doing well, and the last few years have added a lot of good numbers. So I think India is on track, and with the right kind of push from the government and also the right kind of involvement from the private space, I think we should be able to achieve the 300 gigawatt number first by 2030, and then gradually move towards the bigger target of 2017 to achieve net zero.
Okay, so let me try to summarize this and correct me if I'm wrong. So I think India's current capacity is about 420 gigawatts total in electricity generation, of which you're saying about 50%, so roughly about 210 gigawatts is coal, and you
Right.
have about 20% of solar, which is
Yes.
about, let's say, 80. And most of it is utility scale, and about 12 to 15 gigawatts is what you have in rooftop solar. Um,
12 gigawatt as of now.
12 gigawatt as of now. Now, I quickly just I was adding up the numbers. So if I add up all the renewable energy sources, it's roughly in the late 30s to about 40%. Is that it? Yeah, that's probably correct. So that actually puts India at par with even the European electricity generation system, which produces about 40% from renewable. So this is actually something interesting.
Yeah. So let me just add a point here. So as per the latest numbers, I think there's 191 gigawatt of renewable energy installed capacity in India, which includes large hydro.
Okay. Yeah, of course, including the
Yeah.
hydro. So it's actually interesting to note that initially India used to be much more dependent on coal, and the utilization rates were very high. But over the years, as renewable energy has slowly increased in the Indian electricity system, the utilization rates of coal thermal power plants have significantly dropped down. To the best of my knowledge, right now it is actually below 70%, and it is steadily going down, which makes the renewable energy sector more competitive because it makes, with lower utilization rates, it makes coal plants more expensive as well. Um, so, so actually, I mean, in continuation to this, um, I understand that India wants to go from 80 gigawatts to 300 gigawatts, uh, but it's like in only next 6 years or so. Is that a feasible target, though? I mean, I understand this is where India wants to be and needs to be, but what do you think about the feasibility? And what
Yeah,
needs
I
to
think
happen?
we are. Yeah, I think we are on the right track. See, if you see the overall numbers, also 82 gigawatt, as I told you, it is led by utility solar. So I think utility solar already has the right kind of push, and the numbers are coming from utility solar. The push where it is really needed is the rooftop solar segment,
Okay.
right? So at CSTEP, we have also done a national level potential assessment for rooftop solar in India and also some other solar applications. So for what we have uh, calculated from the assessment is that India has around 800 gigawatts of just rooftop solar potential.
Oh, that's
Okay,
quite
so the
massive.
number is huge. The number is there. We have the that kind of potential, and you see, if you see India's population, India's building density across cities and towns, you already know. I mean, this is a number 800 gigawatt, but if you have just a bird's eye view of India's buildings and India's landscape, you know how many rooftops, how many buildings are already there, which, if utilized well, we are sure we will definitely achieve humongous numbers. So yeah, rooftop solar I think is where the right kind of push is needed. Ground mounted is doing well on its own because you have all the large players working in ground mounted and utility solar. Rooftop is where the smaller players work. We have a few big companies which are working in rooftop solar, but specifically if you talk about the residential segment, which is also one of the major pushes of the current government, and hopefully which is also going to be the next government also as per the trends that I've seen in the news. Uh, so residential, it is very, very important that the right kind of push for rooftop solar is there. So yeah, so if there is proper push and there is also alignment from the government and there is proper interest and awareness from the consumer side, I think rooftop solar also can take off. So if you see the rooftop solar numbers, it's 12 gigawatt as of now, but you will be surprised to know that 3 gigawatt, around 3 gigawatt was added in the last one financial year itself,
Right.
which is also one of the not one of the highest, it has been the highest for a single year. So yeah, the numbers are growing, and with the right kind of push with the current I think you must be aware of the current scheme in India, which is called the Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Yojana, which is essentially the prime minister's scheme to solarize 10 million households or 1 crore households in India, and the state governments are also aligned with that mission. So yeah, so the right kind of push is there. We are just going to see the start of that scheme. It was launched in Feb only. So I think with the right kind of push, solar rooftop solar will definitely take off and gradually maybe come at par with the ground mounted installations in India.
Okay.
And
So
with that, I think that with that, I think even the 300 number which may look a bit far at this point of time, going from 80 to 300 in the next 5 to 6 years. But I'm sure we'll be able to reach, or at least reach nearby that target by 2030.
So what kind of push is there on the ground? Like if I'm the consumer, like do I get any benefits or subsidies? And what kind of policies have been laid out for this?
Okay, so if you see rooftop solar over the years, the residential sector always had subsidies. Okay, the subsidies used to differ state by state. Okay, some states provided lower subsidy than the other state, but the subsidy in the residential segment was always there. There also used to be subsidies for the educational sector also, which is not in place now. So right now the subsidy is mainly in the residential segment and also in the group housing. With the current scheme that was announced in this year, February 2024 only, it's now a very lucrative scheme for the household owners, because as I said, the scheme is to solarize. The target is to solarize 10 million households, right? And if we just say, if the average system size is 2 kilowatt of these 10 million households, and this number is actually achieved, so we'll get 20 gigawatt just from those 1 crore or 10 million households. So which will give the right push to rooftop solar in general in India. And if you talk about what are the benefits provided in this scheme, so it is a heavily subsidized scheme for the homeowners. So, like, for the first 2 kilowatt of your RTS capacity, now say if I'm a consumer, I'm installing 2 kilowatt of solar under this scheme. So 60% of the benchmark cost is subsidized. Okay, so if the system cost is say 1 lakh rupees, so 60,000 rupees will be subsidized. So the actual cost for me would be 40,000 only. Now, going forward, for additional rooftop capacity of 1 more kilowatt, then it will be 40% of the benchmark cost. So for the first 2 kilowatt, it's 60%, and for the next 1 kilowatt, it is 40%. Okay, and above 3 kilowatt, there is no subsidy as of now. So this scheme makes it very clear that it is only for the residential segment, because up to 3 kilowatt is the size that typically you get in the residential segment. And this scheme also extends to group housing societies and resident welfare associations. They also can get subsidy.
Okay,
Okay, so it becomes a win-win. Yeah,
so for our
yeah. Please go
international
ahead.
viewers, so for the first 2 kilowatts, then it's effectively costing a consumer about $500 in that ballpark.
Yeah, I think it should be okay, because the benchmark cost as per the ministry, MNRE, the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy in India, the benchmark cost for first kilowatt is around. Yeah, I think your number is correct, because 30,000 is the per kilowatt subsidy for the first 2 kilowatts. So
Mhm.
if you get a 2 kilowatt system, you get 60,000 rupees of subsidy.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Um, then from what I hear is the potential in terms of solar capacity is definitely there to grow, and if it grows, then India is definitely going to be on track for its net zero promises, at least in the electricity sector. The whole question is about whether it can reach those targets. The targets have already been placed. The question is about now execution and implementation. And and in the recent years, there is an accelerated push, and so you expect this trajectory to continue forward, irrespective of like the political scenario in India.
Yeah, you see these three numbers are from the last 2 years. Okay, so the first number you see is 6645 megawatts, so 6.6 gigawatts. This was at the end of the financial year 21-22. Then you see there was a significant rise. From 6.6, it went to 8.8 gigawatt by March 31st, 2023. Now this last year, where the major jump has happened, from 8.8 it went to 11.8. So as I said, around 3 gigawatt was added right in the last year. So a big 25% of jump just in the last year. So yeah, if and this was without this particular scheme, which is now creating a lot of eyeballs, a lot of interest from the common public. So yeah, talking about rooftop solar is has become a household topic now. Yeah, earlier the households were not very aware of what rooftop solar exactly is, what are the benefits. They knew because some of their neighbors would have installed, but the clarity was not that much. But now with the scheme, people are much more interested, and you'll also be surprised to know that the target is to reach 10 million households, and the national portal of rooftop solar in India has already received those, in fact, more than 10 million registrations.
Okay.
So yeah, so registration means that people have shown interest and they have registered on the portal. Does not mean actually it converts into installation, but I think it's a good start because the
O-
interest is there. And also this, the number of registrations that I'm telling you, more than 10 million registrations, it is not very state specific. It is spread across multiple states. Like multiple states have been doing well in terms of number of registrations. Now the question is, how do these people who have shown interest and registered on the portal finally take the decision to go for rooftop solar? Now, here the main challenge is to actually convert these people into rooftop owners, solar rooftop owners.
Okay. So let me split this a little bit more. So in India, we have individual houses, but in urban cities, a lot of people actually live in apartment complexes, or what we call flats normally. So these are basically buildings with number of residential apartment units. In small apartment complexes, maybe the residents can take a joint decision what to do with their roof space, and then implement something. But in the larger buildings, there may not be any consensus, or one single individual like unit owner may decide that he or she wants to implement a solar PV panel. So how does this space work exactly?
Yeah, it's a very valid question. So there are schemes coming. Actually, some of these schemes have already been given the green light by certain state governments. Uh, there is the option of virtual net metering present, which is approved by some of the states, and similarly, there is option for group net metering. So virtual net metering essentially means that uh, I want to go for rooftop solar. I may not have a roof. For example, I live in a flat, I don't have a roof, or I live in an independent house, but the roof is not suitable. Maybe it's not that sturdy, or maybe it is full of shadows. But I want to invest in rooftop solar. So then their option is to go for virtual net metering to find a place where the solar panels can be installed, and I am the user of that rooftop system. Yeah, there's another option called group net metering. Now, say if in a apartment complex there are 10 families or 10 owners who want to go for rooftop solar, and they do may want to do it together, but their current building rooftops may not allow for it. So then in that case also, if they can find another piece of land or another rooftop where they can jointly invest. Okay, so now if there are 10 owners and everyone invests 10% in that system. So whatever the generation is, so 10% will come to each owner.
Okay.
So
Okay.
so these are two policies which I think going forth will be very important for India, because as you said, the number of independent houses are only so much, but especially in the metro cities, you have so many big apartment complexes that it's not possible for each and every flat owner to have a rooftop in their name. So I think these two policies will be the future. As I said, a few states like the state of Delhi has already greenlit group net metering and virtual net metering, and I think gradually more and more states will approve it. So we also had a discussion with some more states which did not have these policies, but they are thinking about it, and they're also seeing how successful these schemes are in the other states, how feasible these schemes are. So yeah, surely I think in the next few years it will probably come across all the states, if not all, in most of the states, if not all.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, if I'm a single consumer, or owner of an apartment, um, if I do have the opportunity to actually buy and place a solar rooftop, a solar panel on my rooftop, then great. But if I don't have that possibility, then I can always invest, um, and and s- and somewhere else it will be placed. But I'll still get the benefit of virtual net metering, right?
Yes, but the mechanics of how that roof, I mean, how do you install your solar plant or rooftop solar plant on another roof, that again has to be a case to case basis. A decision has to be taken on a case to base basis as to who's the owner of that roof and how do the transaction between the rooftops owner and that roof owner takes place. But yeah, as I said, it is already working in some states.
So it is similar to an offset. How offsets work, like where you pay for some sort of plantation somewhere, and maybe you're not planting it yourself, but somewhere it is being planted based on what you are actually investing. Um, uh, I'm not saying that
Yeah.
it's exactly the same, but it's kind of the equivalence. So you talked about net metering. Can you explain to our viewers what net metering is actually?
Okay, so net metering is the most common scheme for rooftop solar in India. Okay, net metering essentially means is that, say if I have a 3 kilowatt system, right? In India, generally a 3 kilowatt system will generate around 12 units per day, make it 360 units per month. Okay, lump sum 4 units per day per kilowatt. Okay, so what net metering means is yeah. So now suppose my consumption is per month on an average is 200 units only. Okay, so I am generating 360 units a month, but I am generating only 200 units on an average. So there is a surplus of 160 units, right? 360 minus 200. So these 160 units will go to the grid and I'll get a credit of those units in my electricity bill. Okay, so now suppose in some months my consumption is much higher than what I have generated. So this is where your surplus, your credits can be used. So essentially the surplus of what you generate and what you consume goes to the grid. So this, in simple terms, is what is net metering.
Okay, so I'll take this a bit forward. So I'm supposed to get the remuneration for these 160 units. Um, Now, what is the expected price in the sense, like, does it depend on the hour of the day, or it's a fixed price decided by my retailer? So what should one expect?
See, net metering is fairly straightforward. It is net metering mainly means it is not a monetary transaction per se. It is balancing of your units, right? So what you generate and what you consume. So the difference gets adjusted in your electricity bill, and after the end of a billing cycle, it will be adjusted by the distribution company at a fixed rate.
At a
Okay,
fixed
which
rate?
will, yeah, which will be a decent enough rate, because there are certain other schemes, like there is a gross metering scheme. Okay, in the gross metering scheme, so whatever you generate goes to the grid. You don't consume anything. So in net metering, it is a bi-directional meter which calculates how many units are coming and how many units are going. In the gross metering scheme, all the units are going to the grid. Okay, so essentially in the gross metering units, the tariff is much lower. So that is one of the reasons why many people or many consumers don't want to go for gross metering. And net metering is the one which discoms generally don't like the most. Okay, because if the high paying consumers, like say if there is a commercial client, industrial client who is paying in the highest tariff slabs of electricity. Okay, now if that consumers goes for net metering of say 500 kilowatt, okay, so that will result in the biggest loss for the discom. If you just say because that consumer was paying in the highest tariff bracket and now since they have installed a 500 kilowatt system, their electricity bill will be reduced. It's a straight loss to the discom. So that
Right.
is why discoms don't like generally the net metering for larger clients. Discoms generally are okay with the residential consumers, because in any case residential consumers pay in the lowest, one of the lowest tariff slabs.
Related to this, we've been focusing mostly on the residential sector for solar rooftops, but what
Yeah.
about the small industries or office buildings, especially in the urban areas? Like, are they
Yeah.
included here as well?
Yeah, so there's a mandate to solarize all government buildings basically, and it is taking place phase by phase. So yeah, so each state is making their own list of government buildings. They're identifying which government buildings in which location, and they are gradually tendering out for developers to come and install in various modes. Okay, it can be capex mode, it can be resco mode. So capex mode is where the owner invests money on their own behalf, and in the resco mode is where the developer invests money. So these are the two most common modes of rooftop solar in India. So yeah, so all the states are working on these list of government buildings, and there is a mandate to gradually solarize all government buildings in India.
Okay. And what about the private firms? Like, it's up to them how they want to do it, like
Yes.
financially. Okay, but
Yes.
are they eligible for any of the subsidies from the government?
No.
So then, from an energy security point of view, I'm just switching the direction a little bit. Um, so, because in India we still have, although we claim that it's 100% electrified, but there have been questions asked about like then from an energy security perspective, like I may have a connection, but I may not actually have power. So I understand that having solar PVs in my neighborhood or in my rooftop, it's definitely going to add to my energy security. But at an aggregate level, at the national scale, is there any discussion on how this thing is adding to the energy security and how it may help overall in the longer term?
Yeah, so of course, so if India is right now diversifying its energy mix. If you had seen the pie chart in the previous slides, you saw it was not just solar, it was there was wind, a good percentage of wind, a good percentage of hydro. Okay, so India is gradually not just increasing its numbers, but it's increasing in number with a portfolio of solar, wind, biomass, etc., etc. So when you diversify your energy mix, obviously you enhance energy security. You are not just dependent on couple of sources of electricity. Okay, your dependence lies on multiple sources of electricity. So yes, it is a big step towards, yeah, energy security. And if you talk about some of the remote locations in India where still there is a problem in terms of the reach of electricity, so yeah, there also rooftop solar is helpful because there you can have off-grid installations. Okay, you can have hybrid installations. So yes, this diversity in the energy mix, and if you see, it's not led by in the renewable energy mix also. If you see, it is not led by just solar or hydro. Okay, they are, I mean, some like solar is performing better than the others, but still if you see, there is a good percentage from hydro, also good percentage of wind also is gradually going over the years. So with this kind of diversity, yes, obviously India is moving in the right direction if you talk about energy security.
Okay. So could you explain why? So right now, India is pushing towards the rooftop. It's heavily subsidizing, but why does it not focus on utility scale solar only? Why do they want to push the rooftop so much?
Yeah, one of the points is, as I already said, utility solar is something which is doing well on its own, first of
Okay.
all. Okay, utility solar, who does utility solar projects? All the big conglomerates, all the big EPC players, all the multinationals based out of India, or some of the organizations from outside India. So these are the bigger players who are working into utility solar. So it is doing well on its own. However, we also have to see that there will be a time where the actual land to install utility solar will be scarce. Right now, I don't think there's a problem. It will go on for so many years, but there will be a point at some point of time, maybe I don't know how many years later, but for sure it will be when the land would be scarce to install ground mounted plants. And for rooftop, you already have these rooftops, right? So many buildings we already have the rooftops, and also there are so many new constructions coming up all across India, so you also having new rooftops in the residential areas. So you already have that land, you don't need any additional land to install big plants. So yeah, that is why this is very very important. Secondly, you also have to see rooftop solar does not result into too much transmission losses because you are generating electricity at the point of consumption. Okay, some of the utility scale plants I have also worked which had transmission line as long as 15 kilometers or even more. So transmission losses also were high. And the next point here is, with rooftop solar, you also enable so many more entrepreneurs to come up. I'll give you an example. In Gujarat itself, Gujarat is the state which is leading in rooftop solar in India. Right now, I think there are more than 700 EPC installers, more than 700 installers just in the state of Gujarat. Most of these installers have started business in the last 5 years only. This is because there was a push from the state government for rooftop solar, which is why the state has been doing well also. I think it has more than 2.4 gigawatts of installation. So out of 12 gigawatt, I think Gujarat itself has more than 2.4 gigawatts of installation. So that ecosystem was developed, yeah. And so many entrepreneurs, they started, many of them left their jobs, or many of them who were unemployed, they started working into solar. So it gave employment opportunity to create their own businesses, creation of jobs.
Okay.
The laborers who are the people who manual laborers, the manual workers who are working for installations, and then later they are also working for the O&M for these systems. So yeah, the benefits of rooftop solars are multifold. You can argue that some of these examples would be same for the utility solar cases also. That is true. But if you push rooftop solar, you see 700 installers just in the state of Gujarat. Then all, if you suppose all the other states also in India start doing well, it will give rise to many more entrepreneurs. Okay, it will help the economic development of the country. It will help in job creation. Then also, I mean, with all this, if people get jobs and all, there will also be a kind of right direction towards poverty alleviation. So yeah, benefits are multifold here. It's not just technical benefit that you are producing at the point of consumption. There is also the other side of it, of economic development.
So in general, what you're saying is the entire ecosystem has been mobilized in India in this domain. Um,
Yes.
so about the economics of the process, you mentioned the costs, but what is the typical return on payback period typically for a household in India? If somebody decides to put a 2 kilowatt or 3 kilowatt system, what is the current payback period?
I think before the scheme, it was used to be somewhere around 5 to 6 years, 7 years, depending on the system size and depending on what your actual cost is, because many consumers want customizations in their systems. So maybe a rooftop owner may not want to deploy the rooftop system on their roof. I mean, not directly on their roof. They still want to have that rooftop area usable. So many are going for elevated systems. So in such cases, the costs go up, and obviously the payback period will also go up. But if you consider a simple rooftop system, which is the normal 500 or kind of 500 height of the panels, which is the general practice. So in that case, it used to be 5 to 7 years. Now with the current scheme, which is for residential only, the this payback period will even come down lower,
Okay.
because it is heavily subsidized. And also,
Yeah.
there is also, I mean, the scheme is not just limited to giving subsidy to the consumers. There is also plans to integrate more and more banks and NBFCs in the scheme, who can provide loans at very low rates, because generally these loans have been north of the interest rates have been north of 10 to 12% per annum. But with the current scheme, what they're targeting is to provide loans in the range of 7 to 8% of interest per annum. So obviously the cost, when the cost comes down, obviously the payback period will also come down.
Right. I
So
mean,
this actually right now, if you are a residential household, I mean you are a household, and if you want to go for rooftop solar, this is the right time. This is the best time to go for rooftop solar.
okay. So, based on the subsidy, so earlier it used to be in the range of 5 to 7 years. Now, with more than 50% subsidy, at least in the first 2 kilowatts, and the lowering of interest rates. So, I'll say about 2 to 3 years. You're looking at for payback period,
No, no, 2 to 3 years may not be the case. I think somewhere between 3 to 5 years would be a more
3 to 5 years.
accurate
Okay.
number. Yeah.
Okay.
And the government is also pushing more and more banks and NBFCs to join the rooftop solar program.
Okay.
So if you talk about, say, 1 year earlier or say 2 years earlier, the number of loan providers were far and few.
Mhm.
and the rates were used to be very high, as I said, north of 10%.
Mhm.
But now many more companies have joined. There are many new NBFCs who have come into picture. They are providing, they have made the process very simple online. Some of these NBFCs have their own apps where you can apply for rooftop solar on a simple on an application through an app, and their response time is also very quick, and the rates they provide are also very attractive. So this whole the government is trying to make this whole ecosystem, I mean, in terms of government subsidies, in terms of the loan providers, there is also work going on towards creation of awareness, which we have not talked too much about it, but it is a very very important topic for rooftop solar in India, especially in the residential segment. Because as I mentioned earlier also, the awareness used to be low. Right now the awareness has gone up, but still it is not where it should be ideally. So now there are multiple efforts going on. They have started showing rooftop solar advertisements in cinema halls. If you go for a movie, probably you will find one or two ads about rooftop solar telling you about what the scheme is and what are the benefits. There are also, I came to know that recently that one friend of mine was told to install rooftop solar by the postman who comes to his house, because the
Okay.
postmen have also been trained that they should also create awareness about rooftop solar. So it went to that extent that the postman said, if you want to apply for rooftop solar, you can give me your details and I'll help in your application.
Okay. So this is probably for rural outreach as well, then.
No, no, in the city. This is
Now,
talking.
this
This
is
I'm
in the
talking about a metro
this is
city.
in the
Yeah,
city, but given that
yeah.
it's working in the city, and given that the post office and the postman, they're government employees, and they should be trained kind of in a similar way. So that means this message is being carried in the rural parts as well, equally.
Yes, right. And
Okay.
I mean, I have been touching with some discoms also in different states of India, and I asked them what is your take on the scheme and how is it helping. So they said the biggest thing that the scheme is helping is the creation of awareness, and obviously the financial incentive is there. So the interest automatically has come from the consumers. So
Okay.
they said without much effort from our side, I mean, they are obviously doing what is needed for rooftop solar uptake in that state. But they said because of the PM scheme in itself, it is creating that much of interest. And that is why, as I told, it's all more than 10 million registrations have already happened.
Okay. So the government was targeting for 10 million households at least, and the registrations targets have already reached. Um, you mentioned in the beginning, but if you could just repeat it once more, if this was fully executed and implemented, it will lead to what kind of capacity in solar rooftop in India, ballpark?
Yeah, so see, it's 10 million households, that is 1 crore.
Mhm.
So if you take average system size of 2 kilowatt, which is
Yeah.
essentially what the residential uh, rooftop system size is typically 2 to 3 kilowatt. So if you just take the lower side, 2 kilowatt, that itself will mean 20
20
gigawatt.
gigawatts. Okay.
Yeah, so if you take the average to be 2.5, it goes to 25. If you take the average 3, it goes to 30. So yeah,
Okay.
that if the policy is executed well and actually achieves its targets, so the rooftop solar right now is in India is 12 gigawatt. So this scheme itself could give 20 more than 20 gigawatts
Okay. So
if it is executed as per the plans.
okay. So I'll go back on a technical side again. So everybody around the world, they're going towards distributed systems now. Now in India, like solar rooftops are probably the most granular scale you can talk about. With so many interconnections and such granular distributed energy systems, do you see any pushback from the grid operators, or are they concerned about grid stability?
Okay, so there are two parts of this question. I think first is how comfortable are the grid operator, that is the discoms, in our case, the distribution companies. Okay, so as I had mentioned before also that the discoms typically are not very comfortable with the high paying consumers going for rooftop solar. That is why also in most of the states there is also a upper limit for net metering. Okay, so for some state it is 500 kilowatt, some state it is lower, some states are trying to states are thinking that we should have net metering just for the residential systems and not for the other systems. Okay, so this is basically to ensure the discom's financial health, because however that is not the only picture, because there is also solution for this. uh, if you go just for net metering, if all systems are net metered, then obviously it has a negative impact on the discom finances. So you also need, with this kind of push into rooftop solar, you also need to find a mix of models, business models, that should be implemented. Okay, this mix could be, say, net metering, gross metering. There is also a model called roof rent. Okay, roof rent is essentially, you give your roof on rent to another party which installs the system, and with that party then actually sells electricity to the discom. There are multiple models. So what we need is to have a mix of these models, and each state should ideally have certain targets for net metering. So, like, say if they want 500 if suppose they plan for in the next couple of years or 6 months or 1 year, that we wants to install 500 megawatt of rooftop solar. So they also need to define how much of you want this to be from net metering, how much from gross metering, how much from the other models. So if those are taken care of, the optimal mix of these models will help in the discoms maintaining their financial health. Okay, so
Okay.
this is also very, very important for the long term, in the long term, that the discoms finances are not impacted. So it is very, very essential to have the right kind of mix of various models. So that is the first part, that about the finances. And again, about the grid stability, the second part of the question is, yeah, so there is also a question about the grid stability. So yeah, so we have been in touch with multiple discoms, and they are also working on which distribution transformers have how much load as of now. So they also want to know which areas of the city should have more rooftop solar, because as I said, in one of the exercises that we did for multiple states, we did rooftop solar potential assessment. So using our exercise, we can identify that exactly which rooftop of this particular city has how much potential. Okay, and this data is now given to the discom also, so they also know that which rooftop has so much potential and which areas have how much potential. So they also know that this, and see, each rooftop owner, each discom consumer is tagged to a certain distribution transformer. So they can also know that if this particular ward in the city has so much rooftop potential, and if they want to tap this potential, they also know that this particular distribution transformer will need to be upgraded. So yeah, there is also a discussion from the part of discoms as to how do they upgrade their infrastructure. So yeah, this is also where rooftop solar, it becomes much simpler, because you know that which areas need to be targeted and how much work is required for the upgradation of your infrastructure.
Okay. So, have the discoms considered in actually investing or playing an active part in the generation process itself? So, I'm not talking about just maintaining the transmission infrastructure, but let's say I'm a discom and you're a consumer. I may actively approach you and help you to get your solar PV um, and come up with a financial model with you that will have some sort of rent sharing, so that like I'm also happy, I can maintain myself, and you also get the benefits at the same time.
I'm talking about what our experience with the discoms
Of
is.
course. Mhm.
Yeah, so not too much on that side, but yeah, so since they are planning for rooftop proliferation over the years, so there is also a serious thought about how do we upgrade our infrastructure, or how do we are we going to maintain our infrastructure, or what else is needed, so that there is no problem related to the, say, voltage regulation, imbalance of frequency regulation, etc., etc. So but I cannot talk too much, because this has not been one of the topics where we have discussed too much with the discoms.
Okay. um okay. So going back to the 10 million households that have registered, um could you tell us about the relative distribution, like urban to rural, or which kind of socioeconomic background? Do you have any idea about that distribution?
See, if you talk about the geography, say urban versus rural, there is no such divide for the scheme. But typically, the government is targeting the people who have lower consumption.
Okay.
Okay, so
No,
people,
I'm not talking about the divide from the scheme perspective, but from the uptake perspective.
I don't think there also there's huge difference. But yeah, see, still, even after with the subsidy and all, you still have to pay a substantial amount, which for a middle class family in India would still be a huge amount.
Hmm.
Okay, right? So yeah, obviously the I don't have the exact numbers, but I think, in my opinion, it would be gradual. It would be definitely more towards the people who are families who are doing well. Okay, in
Okay.
terms of the affluence. So yeah, I think that would be there, but gradually with the with this kind of subsidy, and also you see in India there is also. I'm not talking about the rooftop solar subsidy. Electricity is also subsidized for
Right.
the poorer households.
Right.
Right. So they in any case are paying lower amounts for their electricity bill. Okay. So yeah, so this also brings me to another discussion which we had with some state governments as to how these households, which come in the bottom in terms of their consumption, the poorer households, which where they already receive subsidized electricity, how they should be converted to rooftop solar. So yeah, for one or two states are very seriously working on a plan, and we are assisting them in the development of that plan. So how to convert these people, the people who are affluent, if they have the awareness about rooftop solar, they'll definitely go for rooftop
Right.
solar. But what to do about the people who are not so affluent?
Okay,
They
so just so that everybody understands, so people who are fairly affluent, um, they pay, let's say, a less subsidized electricity rate, and they have the money to invest. So if you can provide them some sort of financial subsidy to actually install the solar PVs, and if you make them aware, so those barriers are struck down, they automatically start converting. But people who are absolutely at the bottom of the economic ladder, they get even higher subsidies to get electricity from the grid, and they are less aware, and they probably have even less money to actually put in solar installments. So do not they do not have any incentive practically to move towards the rooftop solar. So that's what you were talking about, right?
so I think what you said is absolutely right. So one of the state governments with which we are working, they are devising that a plan in such a way that the financial burden, even after deploying rooftop solar on the rooftops for such people, remains the same. So if they're spending say X amount of rupees for the electricity bill right now, so the state government is trying to develop a plan that the rooftop solar will be installed on their rooftops, but the consumer will still have to pay only X rupees. So those plans are being developed. We are actively working with the state government. So yeah, there is also a thought how to convert these people, because if you consider these people, they are also big in numbers. So if the government is able to actually convert these people also, it will be a great addition to the rooftop solar, as well as a great help to the discoms also, because after say the payback period is over, these people will become totally financially independent, because whatever their consumption is will be balanced from their generation, though they won't have to pay anything after a certain point of time. During till the payback period is there, they'll have to pay some amount which the government is planning is equivalent to whatever they are paying right now before the rooftop installation. So that also plans are in place, I mean being developed.
Okay. All right. So, if I had to broadly categorize the barriers, like I could say, like financial barrier, which is being struck down, awareness barrier being struck down. There are issues with the DSOs and TSOs or discoms, and the health of those companies, and the stability of the grid. Those things are also being sorted out right now. Uh, do you come across any other barriers that need to be addressed in the upcoming period, or things that have been addressed already?
Second factor is consumer awareness. So consumer awareness has improved, but it still has to go a long way. Okay, so what is also needed is to have awareness campaigns across the country. Okay, one of the states, or in fact, a couple of states that we are working with, they are planning booth level campaigns, that is, multiple campaigns in a city with the discom officials, with the municipal corporation officials, and in some cases we also will be a part of those campaigns, that we go to a particular, say, residential society. We tell them about rooftop solar. In cities where we have done that rooftop potential assessment exercise, we'll be asked to show them that portal, how it works, what are the benefits, how much rooftop solar is beneficial for them. So this, see, multiple efforts would be required, and these all have to work in sync for consumer awareness to increase. Because if people see, in multiple cases, what has happened is that people have money for rooftop solar, but they just don't know if they should go for rooftop solar or not, because they are not aware fully whether it is beneficial or not, how long is the life. These are fairly basic questions, but most of the people didn't have answers. Okay,
Mhm.
so there is very, very important need to make people aware exactly how much is your investment needed to be, how much will be the payback period, how many units will you generate, what will be the
Okay.
life of your system, multiple things. So yeah, awareness is another very important topic. And next, I think you spoke about was also on the policy front. So net metering policies have been changing in India. That creates a confusion for developers mainly, and also for the consumer. So in some states, the numbers have been changing.
Okay.
Okay, so initially maybe it was say 1 megawatt, some states change it to 500 kilowatt of net metering. So some flip flop has happened, which results in confusion. There also have been customs duty, which is called BCD, basic customs duty, if you import products from certain countries. There is also approved list of module manufacturers. So if you want to uh, install a plant and get subsidy for it, your panels have to be from these particular approved list of module manufacturers. So there have been not exactly challenges, but there have been some policy implementations which have, along with the other challenges, resulted into rooftop solar not going as fast as it should be. But I think with the current scheme and with the clarity that the government is having, and also the central government with the state governments, because the central government has put a target of 10 million households, and now we have been the states which with we have been in touch with, they have their own targets.
But before I do that, I got a couple of interesting points that you said. So let's say I'm a consumer and I'm aware that I want to have these things. Like I want to install a solar panel. I know my consumption well, but I have questions like, especially on the economic modeling, like what is my payback period and things that you mentioned. So where should one person go? Like they can do independent research if they want to or if they're capable of doing, but if they need some information, should they look out for these kind of booths that you were talking about, or is there any specific office or any specific group that they should be approaching?
Yes, so the discom office, the distribution company's office, is the first place typically where, if you want to install rooftop solar, or if you have any questions about rooftop solar, so that is the first place where you can go.
Okay.
Okay, if you don't want to search online for these answers, so discom office is the first place where you can go. In each discom, they'll have certain officials who are looking after rooftop solar, and they'll provide you answers. Another option is you can always go to the MNRE website. There are now very interesting and very good knowledge presentations being uploaded on the website, where you can know about rooftop solar. You can know about what the current schemes are. There is also a rooftop solar calculator on the MNRE website, where you enter certain basic details. You will know how much you can install, how much will be the generation. You also have links on the discom portals for each discom in each state. You can always go to the discom website. They'll also have certain links for rooftop solar. I'll also talk about what exactly CSTEP is doing in this regards. So I'll throw some more light what exactly we did in 10, 11 cities of India. So as I told you earlier, we did a rooftop solar potential assessment exercise, but I'll tell you now what exactly that exercise is. So we did it first for the city of Bangalore, which is a big city in India. So a helicopter was flown over the entire city of Bangalore. This was done somewhere in 2018, 17, 18. High resolution images were taken from the helicopter using LiDAR technology. These images were stitched together, okay, to create a 3D model of the entire city. So with that 3D model, we exactly know that if say there is one particular rooftop, and since this is a 3D model, you exactly know that which are the neighboring rooftops or neighboring obstacles, be it a tree or be it another building. So you know exactly how much the shadow free area on the roof is. That is the first part. Second, we also do the calculation of what solar radiation is falling on the roof. We also, since this work was done in conjunction with the Discom of Bangalore, which is called Bescom, we also know the consumption history of the consumer. So we considered what is the shadow free area on the roof, and we also consider what is the consumption history of the consumer. So using these two, three parameters, our system will generate the most optimal system design. So on our portal, if a consumer logs in using their Discom ID, they'll be taken to their roof. They'll have to confirm which roof belongs to them. Once they confirm their roof, the system will automatically tell that this is the most optimal system design based on your consumption and based on your shadow free area. This will be in the form of a pictorial representation of panels being actually placed on the rooftop image,
Okay.
and this will come along with a detailed project report where they'll see the financials as to the payback period, the IRR, how much money they need to invest, and in how much time will that money come back. They'll also see the technical details in terms of how much generation is coming daily, monthly, annual, lifetime, etc., etc. So this we did for Bangalore. Based on the success of this exercise, we repeated it for the state of Madhya Pradesh, 5 cities in Madhya Pradesh, and then 5 cities of another state called Chhattisgarh. This time we used drones because the usage of drones became much easier when we did these exercises. So similar portals have been developed for these 10, 11 cities. Now, why I'm telling you? Because we are talking about awareness. So now in these 10, 11 cities, if a consumer wants to know how much is their rooftop solar potential and how much do they need to invest and what will be their payback period and everything, they can simply log into our portals. And within a minute or two, they'll know exactly how much rooftop solar potential on their roof is. There's also an option to customize. Now, say the system is saying that you can install 5 kilowatt. 5 kilowatt is the most optimal design as per the system. Now, if the consumer says no, but I have money only for 2 kilowatt, so they can always input that they want 2 kilowatt, and the system will recalibrate everything and give you a design as per 2 kilowatt. There is also an option to select a particular area of the roof if you want to. Now, say many consumers are particular about their roof. They don't want to use the north side of the roof or the center of the roof or any other part of the roof. So they can always draw a polygon on the roof that this is the part where I want the rooftop system to be installed. So then the system will automatically show that this is the area where this rooftop installation should be done. So these kind of customization options are there, and it naturally creates awareness to the
A-
consumer within maybe 2 minutes.
and this application, software application that you're talking about, is it available? Like, okay,
It
and
is available publicly for any, it is live for any consumer, I mean live for anyone to use, but it can be used only in the 10, 11 cities.
right,
That,
right, of
but
course.
the portal is still live. You can go on the portal, you can check the details. There is a manual on the portal how it works.
If I'm a consumer, I have placed my solar panel, but what about the end of life? Like, I know the recycling business, or it's just picking up. People have just started thinking about it. While the big players are thinking about it, but as a individual customer, if my solar panel breaks down or it's at the end of its life, what do I do with it?
I think that's a very, very good question because that is something which needs to be taken care of. So the typical life of a rooftop of a solar system is 25 years. Okay, so because of that, many people won't think too much about what will happen at the end of the life. But it is a very important topic that proper measures, proper technologies, proper schemes are there as to when the life of these panels are over, what has to be done with these panels. So even at CSTEP, we have a team which is working on this particular topic about recycling of solar.
Okay,
So yeah, it is a very important topic. Right now, the awareness, I mean, first we need to create awareness about solar,
right,
right?
right.
And
It's
after
it's
that, yeah,
it's still
and so
ahead. Yeah.
yeah, it's still ahead, but yes, we'll surely in the next 5 years we'll need to have stringent and strong measures to be taken to ensure that we do proper recycling, which does not harm the environment. Because when we talk about solar, we always say that it is for the benefit of the environment, benefit for the climate, benefit for the globe. But we'll also have to take care of the recycling. It is very important. Right now, the awareness, especially on the consumer front, is very low because, as I said, the awareness is low about about solar itself. So awareness about recycling is even lower. But I think gradually, when people more and more people go for rooftop solar, this also will go on gradually increasing, but the push has to come from the governments and the other big players who are working on it. But yeah, I think in the next 5 years we'll see some good progress on recycling. So as I said, CSTEP, a team at CSTEP is working diligently on this particular topic.
Okay. So for the solar PV panels themselves, uh, like is in because India has its production capacity as well. Is India's production capacity sufficient to meet the projected demand in terms of panels, or a lot of them are being imported right now?
See, as of now, if you talk about the targets that are in place, say 300 gigawatt for 2030, right now I don't have the exact number of what India's manufacturing capacity is, but definitely it will need to be increased so that
Okay.
smoothly we can meet the target.
Okay.
And many of the major module manufacturers have already announced the plans for expansion. Many new players have come into picture. There are multiple new module manufacturers who have started business in the last 5 years also.
So this
Some of
is
them,
sorry. So this is an accelerating space in India right now.
so if I mean it is not just the installers that are going up, it's also the solar module manufacturers that are increasing in numbers. Some of them, the new ones, are very small scale. They are typically, say, they might target just 50 megawatt or
Mhm.
maybe even lower. But yeah, there is a gradual increase in numbers.
Okay. And my last question would be in this domain for C-step specifically. What is the, I mean, in the next 5 years, in this particular domain, in the solar domain, what do you think are the major C-step activities that you think are being planned right now?
Uh, See, C-STEP has multiple groups, but I'll talk specifically about my group, what we are doing and what we plan to do. So one of our main areas, as I already said, is distributed renewable energy, and in that also we are focusing a lot on rooftop solar. As I already given you an idea of what we are doing with multiple states, and we are there are also plans to expand what we have done. And mind you, our work is not just limited to doing that potential assessment exercise. We are also working with the state governments in policy analysis in developing models like as I said, that there's a plan to how to solarize the poorer segment who are paying the lowest amount, and how do they go for rooftop solar. So like I mentioned that there's a plan being developed, being devised so that these consumers pay the same amount even after rooftop solar. So yeah, we are also working for the policy part. How can actually rooftop solar be I mean the uptake of rooftop solar be increased. We are also working on creation of various business models and how each model will have its own advantages and disadvantages, and how the right mix is needed. We are also working for consumer awareness. I already have told you about the part of the campus that we are in. So we are already doing it for some states and planning for some other states. This is just about rooftop solar. We are also working in building integrated solar. So we are also doing a project on building and creation of the development of guidelines on building integrated. We are also working in agro PV. So yeah, I mean our focus is not majorly it is rooftop solar, but we are working on multiple other streams because the future for solar in India will have to be on these distributed renewable energy for sure. And in that also, it has to be a mix which should include rooftop solar and then the new and innovative solar applications like BIPV, like floating solar, like rail integrated solar, road integrated solar. So yeah, on this, there's one more point that CSTEP has done. We have done a national level potential assessment exercise for rooftop solar and all the new and innovative solar applications. Okay, we have developed a solar technology and application atlas for India, which is called STI. I can share the link. On that portal, you can see the lump sum potential of each such technology in across the nation. You can search it on a national level, you can search it on a district level, on a taluk level, which is basically the smallest administrative area in a city. So that portal also we developed, and it is live for anyone to use.
Okay. All right. Um, that's actually good to know that there's a comprehensive approach to this. And so basically you guys are looking at this from a policy perspective, from a business model perspective, and different applications as well. And of course, you're bridging between different levels of government and the other stakeholders as well. Um, but I'm assuming that CSTEP is not the only organization working in this space. There are many organizations in this similar role as well, right? So that actually brings us to the end of today's conversation. I hope our listeners will and viewers will find it informative. Um, if you have any closing remarks, Shantanu, on this, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the time and for the opportunity. I think it was a very great discussion with you. And yeah, I don't think I have any other remarks because I think most of it we have covered during our discussions. So it was
Okay.
great to be here. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And hopefully, in the next 5 to 10 years, India will be able to achieve the targets. And because, as we understand, it's really important. And India, with its population and energy consumption trends, it is really important to get its energy clean. And it's not only just for national importance, it is also of global importance and consequences as well. With that, thank you very much, and hope to see you again soon.